And dudettes, it's your favorite Reject Gamer Mixer 17 here, and we are back. We are once again back with another Minecraft video, and for anyone who could probably recognize off the title, this is once again another Minecraft lesson. Now, frankly, I kind of thought that I was going to have nothing else to teach, but apparently I was incorrect. So, yeah. Based on the title, we will be talking about furnaces. As you can see, I got a few little odd contraptions, but first, furnaces. Now, furnaces, of course, are the main thing that is highly needed when it comes to this game. The furnace being the... Sorry about that. I had to cut in a bit, but anywho, back to the matter at hand, is that furnaces, these types of furnaces, have always been within the game of Minecraft for the longest period of time. The only difference that they ever had was a few changes to their design, and I think at one point how long it takes to smelt some items, including for what can be smelted. Now, of course, as much as I already know that a lot of people already know how these furnaces work, I still have to go over the basics, and I mean the actual basics. So, let me begin. First of all, we're going to need some supplies. Ignore these other supplies I'm just grabbing. For what we are going to need for these things is that we are going to need a variety of resources. Most of all, cobblestone. Cobblestone is a #1 thing that is absolutely going to be needed. Ignore what you're seeing as of this moment. And for what cobblestone allows you to do is that it is, of course, mined anywhere throughout the entirety world of Minecraft except for the end and the nether, but that's a whole different story. But one thing that it does allow you to craft is, of course, the almighty furnace. Now, furnaces give off a special capability, which is to smelt items and cook items, including smoothing out items. Now, of course, I'll be getting to all these subjects within this video as soon as I can actually get prepared. Okay, well, that's just a pain there. Yes, I'm sorry about this, everyone. It's just to prove my points in the later future, which is going to be happening very much soon. I should have been a little bit more ready. What the? Okay, whatever. But yes, as to what I was trying to say is that when it comes to furnaces, the things that you are capable of using in order to make any type of furnace whatsoever is that you are going to need 4 materials for all 3 furnaces that have been added to the game. The first original type being the original furnace. Sorry about that. That was for something else. So the original furnace is built like this. Nothing too interesting, nothing too shabby, nothing out of the ordinary. It's always been 8 cobblestone blocks around. Now then, of course, I'm making extra for the sake of the other 2 furnaces. One of which is called the blast furnace, which requires one furnace, as seen right here, 3 smooth stone, and 5 things of iron. And then you get yourself a blast furnace. The next furnace necessary is just 1 furnace with stripped logs in this pattern. At least I believe it could be any pattern, to be honest. Nope, it has to be the star pattern, as I like to refer to it, or diamond shape, if that's what you want to call it. And that is it. That is it for all 3 furnaces that can be made, or what it is needed to be crafted of them. Let me just toss in this junk. So the furnace, the almighty original furnace, can use up to several different types of resources, as you probably have clearly saw me throw in. However, when it comes to fuel reserves, that's a different story. Just the fact that using any type of fuel has its limitations on what it is you can use specifically and how long that fuel will last. As you can clearly see, this here was a bucket of lava, which is still going, and I believe goes all the way up to 100 blocks that it can smelt. And if I just skim through here, this one being coal or charcoal, this one being one of the, I believe is the wooden item, wooden plank, or maybe just another plant of some type, another plant. This one being coal, if I can move. This one being another plant, probably another thing of wood. Ignore this one. This one being another plant or another thing of wood. This one being, let's see, where are we? I want to say this one is not the bamboo, but probably one of the logs, if I'm remembering correctly. You could use a wide variety of fuel systems, which allow you to smelt other items. Oh, I remember now. This one here is the block of coal. This one here is the block of dried kelp, which does pretty decently. And frankly, I'd rather use that rather than block of coal, only because it's a naturally refueled resource, which I believe I've already gone over there. But yeah. Anyway, back to matter. The furnace has always cooked at the same speed for every single item, no matter what it is. As you can clearly see, it takes quite a bit. It takes a while, and even so, yeah. The furnace can smelt just about anything that can be smelted, cooked, or smoothed. Again, I'll be explaining that in a little bit. However, these two new furnaces allow you to use but allow you to cook or smelt or anything like that, smoothing even, other types of blocks, called the smoker and the blast furnace. Now, the smoker allows you to cook any and all types of food. Any food whatsoever that is capable of being cooked, like these. You want raw pork chops, you can make raw pork chops. You want cooked pork chops. Raw cod, cooked cod. Any of these will end up being cooked. Now, the difference between the two is that if I were to throw... Okay, apparently I'm having technical difficulties. If I were to throw some coal in here, one thing of coal, just to show you an example, I'll throw that in there, and I will throw this in here. This thing is still going. This thing's already done. Basically, this thing will cook food at a much faster pace. Now, of course, it uses a lot more fuel, but when it comes to cooking in a quicker pace, it does in fact help. So that way you don't have to waste your time in the time-consuming furnace. However, the blast furnace is a little more different than the smoker, because the smoker only cooks food of any type. Now, that works for dried kelp, baked potato, and of course all of the types of meats that you have within here. Now then, just to show you where's this thing? There it is. I need another thing of coal. Just gonna grab some in the future. I have to grab this and try to put it in here. Oops, sorry. It's obviously not gonna work. Why? Because you can't use some things. So even though it's a type of plants that you can grow, it's not within the food area. So only keep that in mind. The smoker will not smelt or cook anything at all unless it's food. So don't try to throw anything else in here, because it won't do it. Now then, the blast furnace is a little bit similar to the smoker, except once again, you can't smelt or cook anything. In fact, you can't even cook on the furnace whatsoever. You could only use a specific types of blocks, for which I will show you some examples of said blocks. Let's see, what else is there? What else is there that I can show y'all? Wait, where? Oh, it's over here. I could use you and you, just for the sake of learning. Yeah, I think I'll just use y'all. So, if I were to toss this in here, nothing happens. I were to toss this in here, something does happen. As you can clearly see, the furnace only works for a very small type of things. It will not heat clay to become brick. It will not turn netherrack into brick. It will not dry sponge, and it only works for smelting of items, not for drying, not for blasting in a furnace, or blasting once again for another furnace, even though it's called a blast furnace, but something this is different, or even smoothing cobblestone, which again, why did I grab cobblestone? Would you like to pretend that never happened? Voila, still. See? You can't smooth cobblestone either to gain yourself stone. Instead, these jobs, including cactus, has to go into here, minus these two. So anything that deals with smoothing, blasting, drying, that goes within here. Anything that deals with smelting goes in the blast furnace. Anything that deals with food or cooking of some type goes in the smoker. Now then, hopefully I explained that enough, because it's very complicated and that you actually have to test out multitude of things. And as you can clearly see, these things are still going, which is a joke in my opinion. Now then, enough of these. I don't know why. Oh, I still have pieces. Good. What does matter is this situation. Now then, y'all could be wondering, what the heck is this? Or some people can already look at this and recreate it either ways. So, I'm just going to show y'all some amateur redstone. Some very amateur redstone. People say that I am fairly great with redstone, but that's only a small part of redstone that I understand that I can do. I currently am still learning. So yeah, don't think that I'm like some redstone genius. Please don't. I'm pretty sure if I were to come across a redstone genius and they were to look at this, they would be highly disappointed in me and call me out. Anywho, basically, here are some redstone semi-auto, I think that's what you would refer to it, smelters, or cookers, or whatever you want to call it. So, I have a variety, somewhat, of ideas that I will be prepared to show you, including build, so that way you can have a one-by-one step on how to build this. Now, I will of course show you how to build, and explain these two. And then of course I will explain this one. So what you want to do is that you want to have these three things. Any type of furnace, a chest, and a hopper. So in order to build these things specifically, what you want to do is that you want to have a bottom chest, preferably double. You could also have a single if you want, but double's mostly preferable. A hopper on top of that chest, with whatever furnace on top of that, another hopper on top of that, a chest on top of that, and that's it for that. Go behind the furnace, or the whole contraption thing, place the furnace that points into the furnace, and then, go on top of these two empty hoppers and place the chest. Now, in order to I don't know why I did that. In order to explain what it is that I did specifically here is fairly simple, and I will explain it right now. How this whole thing works is that the hoppers allow you to store up to 5 stacks of, or 5 singular items of whatever it is you want. Now these things can be controlled with redstone, but that doesn't matter in this situation. In this case, it does not matter whatsoever. And hoppers will not only store some items in case you ever need to, but it will also travel through items that can pick things up. For instance, furnaces, chests, and a few other types of storage spacing items. Not limited to barrels, other types of furnaces, of course. You could also use them for forcibly putting in items into someone's inventory without actually having to be there, but through a long piece of travel into a mob's inventory, to some degree at least, and even to some other redstone devices, which could be used for a multitude of things, which I'm not going to get into. Now, that's what these things do. Furnaces you already know, and chests you already understand what those things do. However, this is something that I actually have to fully explain. So, on top of here, you throw whatever you want. You want stone, you want sand, you want whatever, go for it. Toss these two in, and it will slowly be sucked in on both furnaces and be chucked into here. Now then, oops, I don't know why I did that. So that's how this thing works. This here holds however many items you want, whether it's going to be a lot for a big project or very little, which, yes, if it is very little, I highly recommend only using one-sided and not two double-sided things. You could also extend this if you want, but I kind of don't recommend it. And then back here is the fueling system, for which I would just toss the block of coal. It goes into the hopper to transport it constantly, and eventually the furnaces become full, so that way when everything is smelted, it could instantly be transported into the hopper, down into the chest. So basically, from storage of whatever you want smelted, travels into the furnace, or whatever is smelted, or whatever, travels into the hopper, down to the storage chest where you can pick it all up, and of course the self-fueling system. Now keep in mind, you of course every now and then, whenever you run out of fuel, or how much fuel you have had in this chest here, you have to come back and of course refuel it if need to be so. Now then, this is basically the whole system itself, and how it works here is that I put it in different angles, or different sides of direction that it points to. Think of this as north, south, east, and west. The only difference is that I give it this little area where it can be spaced out if you ever need to come back here. However, this is only if you want it this way, for which I do have plans of using something similar to this, only so that I could use up space, but you don't have to think about that or worry about that whatsoever, even if you even care. Another way that I do it is if you want it to be a little more compact. Now, yes, you could do it in a line, but again, I don't recommend that, only because of the other feature that I do have in mind. And the compact version of it is still having four-sided ones, but you push either the north and south or east and west sides in itself, so you could eliminate that space in the middle and reach into these things. However, you have to angle it at a specific point. You aim it too far and you're going to touch the hopper. Aim it in this side, you're going to only get this chest. So you have to aim it in this, which is a little bit flawed to be honest, but for anyone who can make do, they can make do. Or you could even make a platform if you want. The system still works the same, and if you want this thing to be less and you don't want too many furnaces, you could always do one of whatever furnace you need and eliminate the sides. So you could only have two furnaces compact back to back. Now again, you could always do this in a line, but I personally wouldn't suggest it. Now then, moving on from that is this. Now, this may not make a whole lot of sense because where's all the top furnaces? Where's the backfilling system? Well, this is where I hope you can to explain how some other things can work. Now then, the only big issue is that I have forgotten to test something out to make sure it works, so I do apologize for this. Alright, so for one thing you are going to need is that whatever furnace you want goes on top. Whether it's the normal furnace, blast furnace, smoker, whatever. A smoker, a hopper on the bottom of it, so that way it can travel all the items into here. Now then, one last thing is that you could have these in the back. However, here's where things begin to get a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. And that is the fact of a type of transportation system, which is exactly why I have railroad tracks in my inventory. So, as I've already shown in a previous episode on how tracks work. Now then, the problem is that these suckers are very picky, ridiculously picky, that I personally don't enjoy their company at all. So I'm just really hoping that this does not... I knew it. Like I said, they're very much picky. So I'm just going to do it like this. There we go. So tracks are very picky at the end, but you could have them side by side if you want to. And it's most likely preferable to do that, but yeah. So this is the design. You have furnaces in the front with hoppers and chests with hoppers in the back, connected directly into the furnace with railroad tracks above them. Now, here is what makes things interesting, and that is the fact of how these things work. Now, I'm just going to use some examples, being this. Now, this is not going to work for all of them, it's only going to work for 4 furnaces in total, being the furnace and the blast furnace on both sides. So, here we... But yes, as I was saying, the minecart with the hopper, when pushed, and it has any item that you need smelted or whatever, will end up going into here, and it will be the exact same with there we go. The same thing with the other hopper as well. Actually, I should probably show you that. Let me just... See? Voila. Oh, wow. They went straight into here, I forgot. So yeah, as you can clearly see, that's how this works right here. Now then, one thing I did forget, sadly, is that if I were to have pushed that through, as you can clearly see, it didn't work. And that is the fact that for the odd reason is that when it comes to these minecart and hoppers, they don't exactly work all too well when the way that they should or should be as expected. So I'm gonna have to show you this with more hoppers, sadly. So yes, you actually do need hoppers. My apologies for the mix-up, I guess you can call it. And here we go. And voila. As you can clearly see, those furnaces are now working, and that means it has now delivered the sand. Wait. Oh, right, I forgot. It has now delivered the sand, so that way it can automatically do it. Now, the way that these things can work more and more is if you loop it around, so that it can constantly returning over and over again. Now, you could also curve this if you want to. And again, I'm not going to say if it's my personal opinion or not, because I frankly wouldn't be using this here. I'd frankly be using this one only for the sake that I don't have a constant line or whatever it is, because I will never have to do something like this. At least I hope not. Instead, the other way is if you eliminate these chests, because then you're going to have to add in a lot more, and you do this instead. So, you bring in whatever block that can hold railroad tracks, which is multiple blocks. The only few blocks that it won't hold, the railroad tracks, is, I believe, ice and what's it called? What's it called? Glass. There we go. So you just loop you just loop the minecart track with, I believe, only one should work. Put that there. Actually, yes, put that there. And release this. And then that should work on its own. And if I were to push it, it continues on by itself, constantly delivering all the sand, so that way it is transported completely. Now then, if I wanted to have some type of self-fueling system, what I could then do is essentially put a chest right on top of it. A floating chest, to be honest. One chest will do, I guess. And what I could then do is I could add whatever it is I want to, and well, as you can clearly see, it's taking it in. So that way it could easily fuel itself as much as you need it to fuel. And this will constantly keep going for as long as you want it to, until you, of course, stop it by removing the power source. Oops. And as you can clearly see, it did its job, frankly, pretty well. Now you could also use this system to be over here as well, for which you still have enough room to do it, just with less blocks that you need and less railroad tracks needed. And that there is all I can really show you. Once again, please don't assume that I am a redstone expert, because I'm not. I'm just another student who found this out by himself, surprisingly. So yeah. And, of course, I have to show you. This here, I believe. Nope, this here is what one block of coal is capable of doing. Now, one block of coal is capable of going much further than that, of course. And, of course, the same thing with one bucket of lava. One bucket of lava can, of course, go up to 100 blocks. Now, here is where I wanted to bring the ending to, which is the fuel system. Now, I was constantly using coal and coal blocks in here, but in the beginning, I showed you all a variety of blocks and items I threw in here, such as wood, wooden logs, stripped wooden logs, complete wooden logs, which are the these ones here. Or wait, no, here we go. Just these. They're not even called logs; they're just called wood. So I guess you can call them wooden blocks. And of course, stairs with bamboo, and I showed a variety of things that you can easily use. You could use a lot of plant items, a lot of wooden items, whether that be doors, furnaces, stairs, slabs, whatever, essentially. And basically, my point is that when it comes to fuel system, yes, you can burn a lot of things, even tools, surprisingly. But the very few best fuel systems that you could probably use is buckets of lava, but I wouldn't recommend these ones only because of the fact of their riskiness, the rareness on the overworld, and the fact that you have to constantly go to the nether, to the sea, and you'd basically be taking too much lava. And the fact of the amount of time and resources it would take to, of course, obtain all the lava necessary. So frankly, I don't really recommend buckets of lava. Buckets of lava are the least recommended that I would give you out of the ones that I'm recommending right now. Next up would be singular pieces of coal or charcoal. Most likely don't use charcoal only because it requires you to burn wooden logs. Now, the difference between wooden logs or any, yeah, just specifically wood logs, such as these logs, things, not stripped logs or wood logs, actually. Yes, wood logs work, or even the planks. But burn those and through a furnace and you can get charcoal. Charcoal can be used extensively, as much as coal. However, the problem is that it does require you to use more time than you really should. Charcoal, you have to mine it, and frankly, I don't recommend using one thing of coal. Sure, it does well by itself, as proven in here. It does 8, but with 9 of them, by doing simple math, 9 times 8, yes, technically 9 pieces of coal does do quite well, but a block of coal just does that tiny bit better, which is exactly why I highly recommend a little bit more on blocks of coal. However, again, this is not my #1 situation that I recommend you using. One thing I do recommend using a lot more would be dried kelp. Now, one block of dried kelp may not look impressive, but it's the fact of how you can obtain it and how it is you use it. Only because it is a renewable resource for which I will show you right now. Let's see, where is kelp? Kelp is... I feel like I just passed it completely over again. Oh dear. Oh dear. I feel like I just completely passed kelp. Here it is. So kelp. Kelp is grown within the ocean or anything that has water. Now, the difference between growing kelp is the fact of how tall you have a water source for. So kelp needs to have a tall growing space. I believe it can grow up to 32 blocks, if I'm correct. And that alone can grant you a lot of dried kelp if you were to cook it. Now, of course, this requires you to use coal or something of that nature that allows you to burn it, which then will give you dried kelp, which can be used as a food source, but as you can clearly see, restores 0.5 food bar, so I don't recommend eating this thing. But what it does allow you to do is that if you were to put this all into a 3x3 or an entire full crafting table like this, whole crafting table, you can get a block of dried kelp, and sure, it may not look impressive in the sense that it does less than any of the other two that do a lot better, but since this thing you can grow constantly and keep using it, including using it to burn more kelp, I highly recommend using dried kelp blocks more than the others. Now, another thing that you can use is, of course, bamboo. Bamboo you can easily farm at a ridiculous rate that is, in my opinion, a complete joke because of the fact of how quickly it grows. Only problem is that you use one bamboo to smelt one item. So, once again, a block of dried kelp is a little bit better than any other fuel source that you could possibly get. So, that is all, people. If you learned something, great. If you didn't, well, I apologize for not explaining that well. And that is all that I can show you as of this moment. So, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope someone learned something at least. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye.